Yes, we are rolling. Sorry, it's a little
All
bit
right.
harder to unmute.
Okay. So I get the pleasure of introducing Kedma Ough. She is the small business superhero. She wears capes. You'll find her on a variety of different social media channels, but she has a long history of helping small businesses in the local area and across the U.S. actually. So she's an author, she's an advisor, mentor, she's a coach, she's a public speaker. She's a personal friend of mine and a colleague for years now. And I'm confident that you'll find her energy contagious and her insight impactful. So welcome Kedma as our keynote speaker for 2020 MED Week.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you for the entire team. I am truly honored and I'm excited. And I hope that as part of this presentation, you walk away with one thing, one action item, one aha moment. That is your goal from today. And without further ado, one of the things I want to be sensitive to is time. So during the presentation, if you're throwing things in the chat, feel free, team, to interrupt me. I'll be happy to pause and respond. All right, so give me a second to set up my quick PowerPoint and we will begin. All right, everybody see this? Are we good? All right. First of all, I want to do a formal introduction. My name is Kedma Ough. I am a 5th generation entrepreneur. One of my most favorite moments was when I had a chance to meet Patricia Fripp. Patricia Fripp is one of North America's most prominent women speakers. And I was at an event once and I was just new to the experience and I was so excited to meet her. And she said one word to me, one sentence to me that stopped me in my tracks. I didn't know what to say. See, she didn't ask me, what do I do for a living? She didn't ask me where I'm from. She said, Kedma, what is your claim to fame? I had to leave that presentation and spent 6 weeks in meditative state to get that answer. And I share that because so many times when we talk about next level, we need to know what our claim to fame is. So for me, my name is Kedma and I'm a 5th generation entrepreneur and I've worked with over 10,000 entrepreneurs and I own that. And today I'm going to bring you into my world and we're going to talk about what is this thing about resilience. So first of all, my philosophy may be very, very different than what you've heard before. That's okay. I would like for the next hour for you to take all your expectations and all your judgments and all your preconceptions and please leave it outside your bedroom door or wherever you're hanging out right now. You can collect it in an hour. But for the next hour, let's have a new frame of thinking. Resilience for me is not during challenging times. It's resilience all the time. And I'm going to talk about why. So we're going to cover 3 areas: reconnection, realignment, and restructure. So this is me. You can see how I'm smiling. Of course, have you ever been in front of a camera where you're not smiling? Most people want the perfect shot, right? So on the very top, I'm at a TV station. Below is with my book. And thank you, John. Yes, I do wear a real superhero cape, all custom made for me. And a lot of times when I am on stage, people say, well, I want to be a superhero. How do I get to be a superhero? And I always say, well, there's only 3 things you have to do. If you have these 3 things, you get to be a superhero. Now, it's not my decision. It's just kind of based on what superheroes usually go through. Number 1, I ask them, do you have a villain in your life that wants to kill you? Because I had that happen. They're like, not really. I'm like, okay. Number 2, do you have any superpowers, something that makes you different, something that makes you unique? They're like, yeah, I do. Okay. Number 3, are you using that superpower to serve others? Not just you, not just your bottom line, not just what makes your business work, but are you actually doing this daily, mentally? Are you committed to that? And usually they vacillate back and forth and say, you know what, cape looks good. Let's just get back and sit down. You know, I'm all good for now. Now, why do I bring this up? 2 reasons. 1, resilience in my mind is the ability to withstand and recover quickly from difficult situations. However, I love what Sheryl Sanders said. She said, you are not born with a fixed amount of resilience. It's a muscle you have to build over time. Now, I'm curious to know in the chat, if you want to just put the answer in, does anybody know how you build the muscle? How would you build the muscle of resilience? So if you're writing in the chat, the answer should be, oh, I need more difficulty in my life. Okay? That's how we build more resilience, because the more resilience we have, the better. Now, why do I show you these happy pictures? Because before I move forward, I want you to look at these pictures, and I want you to know this has nothing to do with resilience. This is just me smiling at the world. However, the next slide is actually my life. This is what resilience is. All the way to the right, what you need to know is I grew up in a horror film from the age of 5 to 18. And at age 18, I had to escape my home, and I went into hiding for 5 years. I want you to go back to what 5 years looks like. I want you to think about what 5 years ago where you were. Put yourself now in 5 years and imagine what it may feel like to be in complete hiding and not know what the next level is going to be. Below to the left quadrant on the bottom, that's actually my real life. Where I grew up, my first 8 years was in a military country. While most kids here in America at 5 were worried about crayons, you know, what to have in their lunch, I had to worry about suicide bombers. I had to worry how to prepare when the steel gates closed in my kindergarten area. I had to understand that I didn't really have tomorrow. On top, all the way to the left, that I love. That was the first time I hired my first manager. I trusted her. I paid her a really good wage. I was so kind, servant leader. Guys, I paid for her apartment expenses. I literally built that into her cost. I also gave her an amazing state contract to manage. And in 90 days, she embezzled $50,000 and got away with it. She got away with it because she was a very sophisticated criminal. Yes, it was a she. So I had a woman embezzle and get away with it. And all the way to the right on the bottom, that's actually how I got my book target funding. I am a best-selling author around funding, but it's not because I came from the bank world. It's because I had to leave a scary relationship and I paid the price of filing bankruptcy. Not because I wasn't financially prudent, but it was because it was the right way to get out and start all over. I don't share any of this to just open myself for vulnerability. I'm teaching you something moving forward. If you want resilient leadership, you have to be vulnerable. And you have to show the people that work for you why they should work for you. Because we're going to talk about metrics. We're going to talk about systems. We're going to talk about how to keep people happy. But let me be straight up with you. Born in the Bronx, New York, if you are not someone I want to follow, no matter how much money you give me, eventually I will leave you. And I can prove that because if you want to see why people stay, why don't you check out some nonprofit organizations that are paying pretty low rates? But why are they staying? They're staying for the mission and they're staying for the people behind it. So where do we move from here? We go back to reconnections. Now, I am a data-driven woman. I don't just BS. I want to make sure you know why I'm coming where I'm coming from. First thing I want you to know, I'm going to teach you right now why employees are leaving your company. Every time I work with clients, they are always saying, well, they're leaving. It wasn't the right fit. It wasn't the right employee. Oh, it wasn't the unicorn employee I was looking for. That's not why they're leaving. If you want to study this, check out the Work Institute Report 2019. If you want, I'll be happy to send it after this presentation. They interviewed 250,000 people. Now, I don't know how many people on this video right now have actually interviewed 250,000 people. So let's go with this results. Okay, I'm happy with this result. Number one, you guys don't have a career path for them. And they're leaving for that. They're leaving because there's no work-life balance. They're leaving for poor management behavior. They're leaving because there's no well-being focus. They're leaving because poor work environment. They're leaving because maybe the comp and benefits isn't comparable to what they want. But what do the numbers tell us? 22% are leaving because of the career path. 12% work balance, poor management, 11, 8% no well-being, 5%. This adds up to 58 to up to 68% of why your employees are leaving. Most of them are not leaving for retirement or because they're bored and don't like you. They're actually leaving because of something you haven't done right. So what does this tell us? Well, we have to reverse the conversation. Now I'm going to tell you why they're staying. So if you want to understand why they're staying, there's a wonderful book that really talks about it. It's called The Make Meaning by Sherdoff. I'm only going to share 7 out of the 15. If you want to know the other ones, please go and get the book. They're staying, and by the way, there was 100,000 interviews for this, because they have accomplishment in their goals. However small it is, if you can recognize it and they can see that their small goal makes a difference in your bottom line, makes a difference in the company, it matters to them. It matters that you're part of the community. It matters that their ideas matter. I don't care whether they are brand new at the low-level technician or you just brought them up as a manager. Everyone's idea is equal. They want freedom. This one cracks me up because usually when I'm brought in for any employment position, they love to give me unlimited PTO. If you've ever had unlimited PTO, it means you never actually take it. I usually like to say, yeah, I don't really want that benefit. I'll accept 2 weeks instead, because you never take it because the freedom is so available to you. They want harmony. One of the things I used to do as part of Oregon's work is I was a consultant for Business Oregon. I would literally go in to companies to turn the businesses around. Now, 90% of the time, it wasn't because the businesses didn't have a good market position. The reason the businesses were failing was because of employee drama. Department of Labor has stepped in. People are complaining. Individuals want to leave. And I always have a rule when I walk into a company that I'm going to change. First thing that happens is the CEO says, oh, let me show you my values. I say, I don't need to know your values. I'm going to go and interview 3 of your lowest technicians. They'll tell me what your values are. I don't need to see it on a piece of paper. Second thing I set in place is I clearly say to the company, there will be no longer drama in this company. People are like, what? What do you mean? Well, I explain it. I explain what drama is. I explain what gossip is. And I explain that there is 0 tolerance for it. Ironically, within weeks, no drama happens because I set it as a precedent. The other thing people want is justice. Please be mindful here. People are really intelligent. Simple thing that just happened recently. I have a company I'm working with that's doing $3 million. There's a big, yes, they're still in the office. There's a big office amongst all the other offices. And one person feels that they deserve the big office. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think most of us are adults, right? We're not fighting for like the front of the seat or for our car, like who gets front seat, although my sister and I still do that when we get together. But correct me if I'm wrong. We're pretty mature, but not in social situations like that, right? And so the fact that this person, all equal in management, gets a bigger office, in the eyes of the employees, believe it or not, it's injustice. So these are the small things you want to be paying attention to. And then obviously truth and transparency, You have to decide as a company, you have to decide what transparency you want to offer. It could be as open and transparent as here's our books, or it could be very specific to say we are meeting our measurement. But if they don't believe that you are speaking truth, they will actually leave. So where do we go from here? Because I'm all about action. Number 1, if you've never done the DISC, do the DISC. If you don't know what the DISC is, send me an email. If you are doing another assessment, I'm fine by that, but do something. I live by the DISC, and it's not something I just do and leave somewhere on my computer. I use it to understand people, because when I lead people, I lead by their personality. I lead by preciseness, and I lead with a vision board. That means if I have 50 employees, somewhere available to all employees is everybody's DISC profile. Why does that matter to me? Simple. I'm going to pick John Downing as an example, and then I'm going to pick Tracy Fisher, okay? Let's suppose John is late 3 times and on a job. It's an important job, right? It's a construction job. We have things to do, but he's late 3 times. Now, I know John is a high D. When I have that conversation with John, I'm going to say, John, look, you and I, we go back, right? So I'm going to tell you like it is. I can't have you late again. If you're late a 3rd or 4th time, we're going to have to not only write you up, but it could be a place for demotion. And you know I don't want to go there. So look, I don't know if it's a family issue. I don't know if it's if you're just tired, but you need to clean things up. You got it? John's going to be like, meh, got it, Kedma. Same scenario, but now it's Tracy. Tracy is an S. Now, if I acted like that to Tracy, Tracy would start bawling at me. Oh my God, I can't believe you're talking to me this way. Because her language is not a D. Same scenario, I'm gonna say, hey Tracy, hey, I know you just came in. Hey, everything's okay. Don't worry, I don't want you to be stressed out. But I do want to talk to you for a few minutes. First of all, I want to make sure, is everything okay at home? I know your daughter was sick. The reason I'm asking is because we really need your support here. I mean, we value you so much. And one of the things that is happening is we're getting called on the carpet with this project because you haven't been able to be on time. So how can I support you? You know, do I need to get maybe a new vehicle? Do I need to do wake up sessions with Alexa? Do I need to pick you up? What can I do to support you? Because you know what, Tracy, you really matter. Okay? Here's my point. I got the same language communicated of what I needed, but I communicated into their language. Now, English is my second language, and if you're not doing something like a DISC, guess what? You're doing foreign language for all your employees. So you need to get to the language that they understand. Now, I paid attention, because that's what I do as a keynote, I paid attention to yesterday's presentation, which was done really well, around how do we deal with resilience. So Santosh, correct me if I'm wrong, said something about work-life balance and how do we inspire the troops. And Vijay, who I happen to know from a past life, so if he's on, hello Vijay, said, how do you motivate the employees and how do you use a systemized approach? Well, I'm going to tell you. Number one, every year for 20 years, I have heard the same thing from companies and clients. They all want to cultivate the unicorn employee. And I always say this, the idea of a unicorn employee requires that you have a unicorn training program. So if you don't have a unicorn training program, I don't know what you're thinking about. There's no unicorn employees showing up. And if they are, someone else trained them. You understand this, right? Now, if someone else trained them to be a unicorn employee, you're going to pay more for that. I hate to tell you, because they come in a different experience. So these are the things people say. I want my employees to have grit. They want to be results driven, no excuses, commitment to excellence, problem solving, okay? Oh, not only that, but I want them to be innovative. Oh, and I also want them to get along with the team. And they have to be resilient. And actually, you know what? Why don't we just throw in, they should have a can-do attitude. Now, how many of you have been in that situation? Be honest, show of hands, that you wanted your unicorn situation, right? Very similar to a dating profile. However, you have to build the systems for that to happen. So here's where we talk about that. All the way to the left is your choice on knowledge. In your company, you have to go back and you have to look at what is the knowledge that everyone needs to know, all your stakeholders, whether it's board of directors, whether it's your management team, whether it's your supply chain, whether it's your employees. What do they need to know? their mission, their values, your differentiation point, the customer service experience you want, the employee avatar, right? I have to throw in managing difficult dialogues because people don't like to manage difficult dialogues. They ignore it. They don't deal with it right? So now we look at the system. So here are some ideas to think about. Number one, value association. Now, I don't want to call anybody on the carpet, but I could probably bet my entire 401k that there is someone in this group right now, if I ask them right now, what is your company values? They're going to ruffle through some papers, check online, send a note to their receptionist because they don't know. And if you don't know as a CEO, please don't expect anyone else to know. An easy way to build that system is to do an acronym. For the company I'm with, our acronym is IHOOK. Any day of the week, you ask me what my values are, I know them. Innovation, humility, happiness, over-delivery, optimism, and kindness. Simple, because I built the value system behind it. System, use case studies. One of the issues we have to realize is when you're teaching outside of technical, you're teaching soft skills, you're teaching actual character, you're teaching behavior, you must build in role-playing use case videos. Let me explain why. Let's suppose one of your core values is kindness. Now, everybody could probably put in the chat or raise their hand and say, yeah, kindness is a value. However, if you don't show me through some kind of system what kindness actually means in the business, then you are presuming that I understand based on my upbringing, based on my culture, based on how I consider kindness. Hey, when I tell someone what I really think, I think I'm being really kind. My husband's who's Canadian, he's scared to death. He's like, honey, that wasn't kind. I'm like, dude, that was kind. I just told you what I really think. I don't know how kind that could be. I'm not sugaring anything. He's like, yeah, that's not really kind in Canada. Okay. That's a primary example that our culture and our upbringing will skew what kindness is. So you must teach it. How do we do that? Pretty simple. You could take a basic characteristic or core value. You can do an example of what it looks like wrong. And then you could do the exact scenario and show what it looks like right. Now you're teaching into the system. Now you're teaching into what makes sense. Success stories example, right? Happiness program. You can go on any day of the week now on Indeed and key in the word happiness, and you will see Fortune 500 companies and Fortune 100 companies looking for people with their title of happiness. What does that tell you about our society? If we are hiring people with the title of Director of Happiness, probably we have a happiness issue, right? So we want to be thinking about how do we incorporate that. Innovation Sandbox, I love this. This is something I incorporate with a lot of companies. How do we build a system that ideas are recognized? And volunteer programs. Now, you can't build the systems if you don't have the KPIs. So let's add in the KPIs. Metrics are important. Most of you are doing a 5-star customer review, but are you doing a 5-star employee survey? Have you done a survey to your organization right now, anonymous, every quarter to actually get your employees' feedback on if they're happy with you and if they're happy with the department? Have you implemented a best idea program where if they come to you, if Amber comes to me with a great idea and hey, Amber, and I implement it, doesn't she deserve to get compensated? Of course she does. But if you don't have the system in place, there is no incentive for Amber to do that. Number of success stories. I could say to Amber, Amber, I'm going to set a KPI. You get me 3 success stories in a quarter, I'm throwing $200 your way, right? You incentivize it. Best coming to work. I am so excited for everyone who won the awards. Congratulations. That tells me so much about your company. It also tells me that you may or may not be the best company to work for. However, you don't want to be the worst company to work for. So that could be a goal for you to set. Company annual bonus. I'm huge about this. One of the issues we see with company structure is how their actual structure is done from a financial perspective. I don't understand why, especially with small companies who have 100 employees or less, why don't they institute some kind of annual bonus that when everybody works together, when everyone reaches a certain metric, a certain profit, everybody wins. Community awards. This is big for me too, and kindness. Community, because people matter and they want to make a difference in the community. You can build an annual, once a year, spend the day volunteering for something you believe in. My son is autistic. You could try to sell me blue in the face about what you want me to buy. But if you don't know little things like my son is autistic, I really don't care what you're selling. All you have to do is go online to my LinkedIn or Facebook and Instagram. You're probably going to figure out in 5 or 6 posts that my son's autistic. If I was working for you and you said once a year, Kedma, I'm going to pay for an entire day for you to volunteer at the Autism Society, tell me how I would feel. Would I feel that you care about me? Absolutely. Everything I'm teaching you is metrics that you can introduce into your company. Now, the other thing I want to share about this before we move on, I'm going to give you the 5 questions that I ask every single individual before I hire them on. I'm not in the HR world. I'm straight up Kedma Ough, and I ask myself, what would I want to know? First thing, I ask them, share a time you were in a toxic work environment and how did management handle it? Not how did Amber handle it, not how did Tracy handle it. I don't care about them. I want to know how their management handled it, because whatever they tell me is going to be the perception they're walking into with this environment. Number 2, I want to know how I can manage them. How would they describe their ideal boss to their personality style? How many people here, you don't have to raise your hand, especially if your boss is on, how many people here have worked for a boss you can't stand? They may be lovely. Amber, you don't have to raise your hand. No disclosure here. They may be lovely, but they may not fit into your personality style. That's important to know. If you had to assess your challenges, yeah, I see this all the time. They forget the rest of the sentence. If you had to assess your challenges, where would be areas that you would love to receive training or coaching? So if John says, yeah, one of my challenges is I don't like to confront bossy people. Hey, John, you know what? We got a relationship with Skills Path. I'm going to put you in a great program that teaches you how to deal with bossy people. Okay? I am not just accepting the challenge, I'm going to teach to the challenge. Number 4, how do you prefer to communicate? I learned this the hard way. When I first hired my first employee that was, under 21, and I asked for my weekly report and I received it on a text. Okay, guys, I'm not in the 18 to 21 range, so I didn't realize that sending annual reports or company reports were permissible by text. I had to reset the conversation. I had to say, how do you prefer to communicate? And let's talk about how to communicate when it comes to reporting. Number 5 is my favorite. You feel free to steal it. Give me top 5 reasons you would quit this company and why. Why the heck would I say that in the interview? Anybody know this answer? Why would I say that? Simple. If I know the top 5 reasons, my job is to prevent it from happening. Why? Because remember the slide before? 50 to 60% of the reason they leave is because of Kedma. Not really, because people like working for me, but it's the CEO, right? Now, once they're hired on board, these are the 2 questions I ask. Very simple. Number 1, if you were going to commit to helping build this company long-term, what would it take for you to be motivated? Now, I don't know if I'm saying Kenyatta's name right, but if she says, you know what, Kedma, I'm going to tell you what makes me motivated. I want some equity out of this company. Okay, girl, well, you know what? We're going to talk about that. Okay, I'm going to say no, because I know that's what she's hungry for. Now, I may not be able to give her an equity, but I may be able to give her a position where she opens a new location. I don't think she's going to complain about that if I set her up as like another franchise style business, right? But I got to ask her those questions. Second thing I would say is, what is innovative to increase revenue, reduce expenses? If she gives me that answer, if she helps me, if she solves the problem, if she reduces the debt of the company, if she increases my market share, heck, if she opens up the door to the CEO of Walmart, doesn't Kenita have the right to get compensated? Say yes? Of course, right? So we have to be thinking differently. Now, I'm going to jump ahead because you probably have a lot of questions. Now, this is not a presentation for you to just see my pretty face and listen. Do. You've got to take one thing away, because if I come in and do an analysis of your business and I find out you don't have half this stuff, I'm going to be calling you on the carpet, right? I'm going to say, you can't be talking about complaining about employees if you haven't done the work. So now we go into restructuring, the next piece, right? The reconnecting. What is your time worth? How many people know this little bunny over here, this little rabbit, right? Alice in Wonderland, right? This is how I see the average entrepreneur, and I don't care if they're making $5 million a year because I work with them, or 500,000. They are like, I'm late. Where are you running to? So this is from one of our programs. I happen to be on top of everything else. I'm VP of coaching for an incredible national organization. All we do every day is help home service businesses, pest control, construction, window cleaning, pressure washing. And to the left is something we designed. You can do your own design, but here's what I hold them accountable. If Tracy comes to me and says, Kedma, I just don't have any time in the day. I'm just so busy. I have so many things to do. I'm going to say, Tracy, well, let's go through those tasks, because what I'm going to do is start to metric and coordinate and categorize. Are you actually making $15 an hour or $1,000 an hour as the CEO? And if I start noticing that Tracy's doing 60% of the work in the $15 an hour, I'm going to say, Tracy, would you like to apply for an assistant position in your company? Or would you like to hire out or outsource? Or are you ready to step up to the CEO level? Because every single entrepreneur, business owner I've ever met is a control freak. Raise your hand if you're a control freak. And if you don't raise your hand, you're in worse shape than all of us because you're in denial. We are all control freaks. We want to control it because we own it. Now, I want you to shift it. The only thing you need to be owning is your power hour. Not even your time. Your power hour. That means that Amber, Tracy, John have different power hours. Tracy's power hour may be from 8 to 10 a.m. in the morning. That's her power hour. That's when she shuts everything down and starts working. My power hour is usually between 10 to 1 in the morning. I have like insomnia, right? So that's where we make the shift. Second thing I want you to talk about in terms of shift. This is one of my favorite quotes and one of my favorite reports about market recession. I'm going to tell you right now, I am not doom and gloom with COVID. I was not doom and gloom when we had our recession in the 80s. I was not doom and gloom when people embezzled from me, because I live a life of resilience. And this sentence says it all. Economic downturns will reward the aggressive advertiser and penalize the timid one. Now, I want you to reread that 3 times, and I'm going to explain why this is, because everybody's doing it the wrong way. This is actually from International Journal of Business, came out in 2015. If you're interested in the report, happy to send it to you. How to market before, during, and after a recession. Basically, it's exactly what I'm saying. How to be resilient all the time. Because there's only before, during, or after, right? You're constantly doing it. Here are your 10 areas. Now, when I teach you these 10 areas, in your mind right now, you're going to take a point away for everything you're not doing right. You don't have to share it, but if you want to be bold, you can share in the chat room. Oh man, Kedma, I'm down to number 4, okay? Number 1, spend smarter. We're all doing this. But spend smarter. One of the things I do is I write for entrepreneur.com. I just did an article on spending smarter by actually zeroing out your budget completely and then bringing in the expenses. It's a whole different way of thinking about accounting, because if you try to reduce your expenses based on your budget now, you're not going to see it with clarity. If I am meeting with you as a company and I say, you're going to zero your budget right now, and then we choose what goes back in. Now we negotiate, because A, you may not need it. B, we may co-bundle it. C, we may find other resources. D, we may postpone it. You're not going to get that same lens if you don't focus on zero-based budgeting. Number 2, focus on your current customers. Why the heck are we running to all our new customers? We need to be caring for our customers, current customers, cultivating those customers, because everything in business is relationship driven. Yes, many of you have amazing contracts with the government. And at the end of the day, I will argue every single day of the week that you have amazing relationships with those people who initiated those contracts. Now, we could argue back and forth that we have compliance and we have systems and we have places to protect. And it so happens that people give business to people they like, okay? I don't make up the rules. I'm just telling you the social background behind that. So focus on people that like you. Outsmart your competitors. How do we outsmart our competitors? By not only thinking different, maybe not outsmart completely, but maybe we outsmart maybe an entire industry. Maybe we collaborate as competitors together. You know who did that really well? The dairy farmers, when they went after the one campaign, Got Milk. There is no one on this call that has never heard of Got Milk. However, think about the back end of that. Could you imagine? Dairy farmers are competing all the time for their share, and they found a way to come together because they were outsmarting who? The soy milk, the almond milk. Of course, in Portland, we have everything we can imagine, right? The macadamia milk, right? Because they wanted to outsmart their competitors. 4, invest in growing markets. Let me tell you, when this recession hit, here's the first thing I said to my clients. I want you to be paying attention to all your competitors, and I want you to call them. I want you to ask them how they're doing. See if there's an opportunity for you to maybe buy their business, buy their list, buy an opportunity to work together, because now is the time to think differently. Fight for your resources. I am a huge advocate for getting free money. We'll talk about that later, but if you're not fighting for your resources, that's on you. If you're like someone like, oh, I don't want the government helping me. Oh, I don't want somebody to help me. I don't understand that. This is what I tell people. Go on an island by yourself, hang out by yourself, because the rest of the world needs people and resources to move forward. Keep spending on marketing. Every single client I coached during the recession, I said, spend, spend, spend. Why? Because if you saw the competitors, everyone stopped spending. The only people who were on the platform were the spenders, and everyone was listening. Most of my clients, 90% of my clients during the whole COVID were in an overdrive with business, not an under. Support your supply chain. Very important. Last thing you want is to be on a contract and find out your supply chain has gone out of business. And adjust pricing strategies as needed. This is dependent on what's going on. Lastly, you go back to your core values, which we talked about. All right, let's continue. This is an example. We don't have enough time, but if you want to check it out, Baker Soft Wash. Go online, go onto YouTube. Baker Soft Wash is based in North Carolina. One of my clients right now, and this picture is actually a video where he and his company decided during COVID to go out and start cleaning the parks for free, because they wanted the community to know that they care, that it matters, and they want the kids to have a chance to go out and play. Well, it so happened that they got picked up by their local news station. And it so happens now, as a result of giving back karma, they now are in a final negotiation with overseeing 15 park properties, okay? This is the point. Sometimes it's not about the bottom line from a profit. Sometimes you have to give back to get back what you want. All right, let me see if this let me continue. All right, we're gonna go to the last phase and then we're gonna open up for questions. By the way, are there any questions right now happening or can we kind of go through? Are we good? Thumbs up? People still listening? Nobody's falling asleep. All right, this is my wheelhouse. Here's my superpower. Money, money, money. I've taught at 2 universities. I'm obsessed. I spent 15 years studying it. Let me tell you how this happened and then we'll move forward. Back in 2001, I left my relationship. I told you that I had to file bankruptcy. It was probably one of the lowest moments of my life. If I had taken you back there to 2001, if we went back to the past, you would have found me in Tucson, Arizona, sitting on a curb right below a light. It was evening. I had just filed bankruptcy. I could see the courtyard, the courthouse right to the right side of me. And I was sobbing my eyes out because I was so ashamed. I couldn't understand how I got myself in this position. I have a master's in business. I have a finance background. And why did this happen to me? And I couldn't understand what I was needing to learn. 2 weeks later, I went back to, I was in a fuzzy kind of place. And I remember coming back after finishing the day, and I was in my apartment and I got a little envelope in the mail and it was from Capital One credit card. I had no idea why they were sending me anything. I opened it up and it said, congratulations, we're giving you $200. Now, most of you are thinking right now, what is the big deal? What, 200 bucks? What's the big deal? However, you got to understand where my mindset was. Number one, I had no idea why the credit card company was giving me money. And number two, I remembered as a young girl, I used to play my favorite game, Monopoly. Now, if you've ever played Monopoly, you could lose everything. You could have everything mortgaged. You could have no money. What happens though if you get around the board and pass go? How much money do you get? Does anyone know that? I have $200. At that moment, Tracy, I said, oh my God, the universe just brought me back into the Monopoly game. And now I'm going to start playing. I literally said that. And then I said, what if I go on a journey to uncover every fund, every grant, every resource for people that had had a crisis? People who go through crisis, actually, the number one reason women file bankruptcy is divorce. Nothing to do with money, nothing to do with their financial knowledge. And so I spent 15 years obsessed. And as a professor, I would say to my students, you find me a deal or a grant I don't know about, I'll take you out to dinner. Never took anyone out to dinner. That's how obsessed I am. So I'm going to bring you into my world. This is my book. If you want it, great. You can just go onto Amazon. If you love my voice, you can listen to me because yes, I am the voice character for this book. Target funding, plain and simple. Identifying and investing funding opportunities based on you, based on your situation. So I see funding like a pizza pie, not one slice, 12 slices. So when you come to me and say, Kedma, I want $100,000, I'm looking at 10 or 12 ways to get that money, not one lender, not one source. Here's your gold. See variables? Variables are gold because this is how I find the money. I find the money by tying it to the variables. Every single variable you see here is tied to money. In fact, you cannot find me any funding that is not tied to a variable. Every funding is tied to a variable, whether it's geographic, demographic, whether it's terms, your business size, stage of business, the industry you're in, the innovation. So the good news is there's a lot of money. The bad news is you can't find it. How do I know that? Because we all love to go onto Google and key in grants. And after we get, 160 million hits, we get bored and frustrated. But the reality is that a lot of the words you're looking for are hidden in terms you don't know yet. Now you know some terms because of what's happened recently with the disaster loan, but I would bet you, that last year or 2 years ago, you didn't know what a forgivable loan was. And if you did, you didn't know where it was. You just kept along with what you usually know. Now, this is my world. People say to me all the time, Kedma, is there any money? And I always say, look, you know what? There's a funding party happening every day of the week. They're like, well, how come I don't know about it? I said, because, well, you're not invited because you don't know about the party, right? But it doesn't mean the party's not happening. So when we talk about EIDL, when we talk about PPP, you need to be clear this is only one aspect of funding. That's all it is. It's disaster relief. All the other circles are actual funds we can look at depending on the situation. Now, how are we going to do this? So I'm going to show you some quick examples. Number one, most of you have heard of the IDA program. It's an individual development account program. It's offered really as a match 1 to 8, depending on the company that you're working with. And it's usually for home, education, entrepreneurship, and disability. A lot of CEOs will say to me, Kedma, you know I'm not eligible. My household income is too much. I make too much money. I have too much assets. They're not thinking about their employees. Why are you not referring your employees? Do you know how many times I've worked with an employee and I've helped them get their first home? I didn't even have to put closing. I just sent them to organizations like Housing Authority, or I get them into a college saves plan and they get a 5-to-1 match. They get $8,000, they can go back to school, or they get $9,000 to help towards a closing cost. Now let's be honest, if Amber was working for me and I helped her get her first time home, and all I had to do was make the connection, is she gonna be an employee or is she gonna be a fan for life? She's gonna be a fan for life. So we have to start changing the dialogue of how we do things. Now, for some of you, John knows this, I sent out a survey and I didn't get a lot of people, but for the people who did it, I did funding for you. So if you're on the call right now, Sean Mitchell actually did his survey, Embryo Design, and last night, I took my hourly rate, which is a lot, and I said, I'm gonna hook you up, Sean. Now I know, for example, that you've invested in the community, you've done homeless outreach, you have 15 acts of kindness. Here, and then below is all the things your company focuses on. I also know you're planning to go to Seattle. So I went on and I polled, and I want you to check it out. The Washington State Community Economic Revitalization Board actually has grants, $750,000 in loans, $300,000 grants for economic development, for public infrastructure. So you're going to Seattle as a new office, you pick up the phone and call them. Say, hey, what are you doing for us as a new office? That's target funding. The other thing I'm going to ask you, Sean, to do is I want you to benefit from the homeless outreach, but think differently. I pulled up 318 nonprofit organizations in Seattle alone that focus on homelessness. You're going to call them up. You're going to tell them you want to do service, but you want them to apply for a grant. And then they'll apply for the grant, you become the subcontractor. So it's not that you're taking away from kindness, it's how do you build what you're doing in a way that targets funding a different way. The other one I did was, oops, did I lose her? I did lose her. And I don't know how to go back. But, oh, that is a bummer. I think it was Pacific, Mark. If Debbie is on, okay, I did yours, and I'm afraid to go back, we'll start all over. But in your case, you did an amazing nonprofit focus for the YMCA supporting African-American veteran musicians. You see how I remember that? Guys, I'm doing this right on the fly. African-American musicians giving back who were, want to share their music. And I think they may have had some veteran or military behind it. And what I had said was, that is amazing. We can go after so much funding for you. We can go after funding for minority, for veteran, for homelessness, for musicians, because we're tying it into the social mission. All right, a few more minutes, and then I'm gonna open it up for questions because I know I threw a lot here. These are my 7 rules for funding. If you wanna go after funding in a different way, you say, Kedma, this year, 2020, 2021, I want to hit up 20% of money coming from grants, coming from alternative funding. First, you identify your variables. Then we research the funds. This is no different than doing a budget. You're going to do a funding timeline. Then we target the funds. Then, prior to targeting, we build what they want so that we don't have an issue like Prosper Portland did. They put out a need for $10,000 in grants. They opened it up on Monday, they closed it on a Thursday. man, if you fell asleep for 3 days, you were not getting that program, right? So you need to have that right up front. Apply for the funds, and then reapply if you're rejected, okay? And then here's the one thing I want to say below here. I'm hearing background noise. Use of funds. I'm hearing background noise, Tracy and Amber, just as a heads up. Use of funds. The quickest way, if you want to come and get consulting on the quickest way to go to jail, misappropriate funds from the federal or the state. That is the quickest way you can do it. So if you're going to get any funds like that, make sure it's appropriated correctly. All right, I'm going to open up for questions because I know I'm a stickler for time, and I think we have about 8 minutes. Thank you, everyone, for giving me a space to go over everything. So I will now listen to questions, if we have any. Do we have any questions? Maybe not. Cody, is there anything in the chat? I haven't seen it.
I was just scrolling through that. Everybody, of course, is very interested in getting your disc.
Yes.
Will that be in the materials as well in the PowerPoint?
Yeah, so what I can do is, you know, there's a couple of ways you can go after the disc. The first is if you want to just do a free, like, quick just check, go into Tony Robbins' website. Tony gives like a free down and dirty. It's not something I would personally use for like your employee development. It doesn't give you enough. But if you really want to onboard employees the right way, I can get you a discount for that. And you can feel free. Look, I'm not here necessarily. I love disc because I use it. What's most important for you to know, use something. Use something, because otherwise it's a shot in the dark in how you're actually developing your employees. Yeah.
And we got one question that says, can one secure a grant if they own an LCC and not a 501c3?
Yep, great question. Yes, my whole book is based on grants for for-profit organizations. That's why McGraw picked me up. I don't specialize in nonprofits. I know nonprofits. I've worked in nonprofits. But my excitement is when we get for-profit grants. And yes, the tides have turned. There are for-profit grants. They're usually hidden grants. So I want to make it super clear for everyone. They are not shouting out there and saying, hey, VJ, come and get my funds. They won't do that because the funds are very limited and they're very restricted. So you really have to be prepared to apply when it opens and when it closes.
We have another one, is one of the challenges I'm facing is having a business that is registered in a different state, and most grants in Oregon require that a business is registered in the state. What do I do to acquire funding and grants?
So one of the things we have to be mindful of is that with funding and grants, it can be geographically driven. It can be so specific that it could be even down to a certain street area. When the COVID hit, it was shocking, but there was something like $250,000 set aside only for businesses located in Chinatown. Have you guys been to Chinatown in Portland? Okay, blow your nose and you're into the next place, right? That's how small it is, all right? Right. So the point is that the answer is yes, you can get funding. But it may be geographic driven or it may not be. You may decide that I want to go after grants based on my gender. Then we go after women grants. Or I may want to go after grants based on my ethnicity. Then we're going to go after maybe a minority-driven grant. We have to change the language that grants are tied to variables, and we have to decide the right variable to go after.
So one last time, we've had a request one more time what the name of your book is, and I know you said you can find it on Amazon.
Super easy, Target funding. So it can't be any simpler, right? Target funding. I'm really passionate about it. Over the last 20 years, I have helped secure through funding and resources, in the millions and millions and millions of dollars, because the average client that has worked with me, I told you I've worked with over 10,000 entrepreneurs, usually can secure about $10,000. Now, sometimes it's as high as, several million, especially if we're going after funds like SBIR, or we're going after investment funds. but it's a different shift in how you look at funding.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. We have heard nothing but great things. I've had some personal texts coming in to say, wow, good job. So thank you, Kedma.
Yeah.
Really hard to pull off virtually. I have the honor of closing out all of Med Week. It is the tradition that the vice chair closes out. So a year ago when I accepted this position, it was told, well, a lot of people don't want it because they have to give a big speech on stage and write it and everything. So I kind of lucked out, I think, because I get to do this virtually, so I don't have to actually juggle the whole walking up the stage thing. So I just want to take a quick moment to again thank all of our sponsors for participating and helping make this possible. I've been here for 2 days, and every session we've had almost 50 participants. So when you multiply that by almost 6 events, that is a lot of hours of knowledge that we gained today, all because of our sponsorships. So if everybody could virtually applaud and thank all of our sponsors again. And I also want to share a little behind the scenes here is our theme this year, Reimagining Your Legacy, Mastering Seasons of Transition. This fantastic board that you've met throughout the past 2 days, we were all sitting around a table face to face, sharing food, no masks on at the time, unbeknownst to us that in a matter of weeks, we were going to be told everybody go work from home. This board hasn't really seen each other since. And that was back in the winter when we came up with this theme. And we had some discussion in the spring around, hey, do we pivot? Do we change our theme? What do we do? And we all said, no, this theme still kind of fits. And I think over the past 2 days, we have done nothing but celebrate transitions and change and how we can all come together and be resilient. And Kedma knocked it out of the park again, as all of our other presenters have this week. So huge thank you to all of them. But lastly, I want to thank you, the attendees, for showing up, for moving forward. Our legacies depend upon our resilience, and our strength is further defined by the adversities that we overcome. I want to close with the quote from the great entrepreneur, Madam C.J. Walker, who once said, I had to make my own living and my own opportunity, but I made it. Don't sit down and wait for the opportunities to come. Get up and make them. So I challenge you as you leave to take this time to get up, to make your legacy, and we will master this season of transition and be stronger for it. Thank you all again for joining us for Med Week. Look forward to seeing you again in other events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. This has been a great Med Week, and thank you for helping make it such an amazing event.
Really need to find some music. Like this is the like,
unmute yourselves and say
exit music, and
I can have my Alexa play something. Alexa, play Hall & Oates.
there we go.
I feel like we need like confetti, you know, like when you send an emoji and it celebrates or something.
You got to play that song, Closing Time.
Alexa, next song. That one was too slow.
Good. Okay, Cody, good job. You knocked it out the park with your close. I really.
Thank you. Thank you. Good job to all of you. Yay.
Kedma had me.
Alexa,
That was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Super.
I had to put my phone down because everybody's texting me about everything Kedma said. No, she's amazing. Quit texting me.
I know. I was getting personal texts and work texts too. And yeah. She is really vibrant.
She's phenomenal. She really good information. I think this was best virtual conference ever.
Read.
Ranked.
Yeah, I totally, good job, team.
All right, I'm signing off. I'll see you
Yeah,
all.
I'm gonna start my drive.
Yeah,
Amber, you're
Tracy,
still
I'll be over
recording.
at your place in 5 minutes.
Oh, I am.